Curtis A reached out to me, said make a theme song for my show. Said alright, just give me all the details, man. And my homie says he don't know. Well, if you're gonna pay me big bucks, cause I might should have something to say. He said, you know what I bring, I'm the customizing king, nothing else matters anyway. So is he gonna have guests? I don't know. Is he gonna go live? I don't know. What time will it be? What will you see? I'm pretty much in the dark, but I can guarantee he'll be customizing action figures, getting paint all on his fingers. It's art by Akerman. It's art by Akerman. Tips and tricks and conversation, sharing his gift with every nation. It's art by Akerman. Art by Akerman. You best get ready, cause now it's time for Art by Akerman.
Welcome, folks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Art by Akerman. We are doing another one of the How Do They Do That? Last time we had Eric LeBron on. We did some talk about his gargoyles and the stone look that he achieves with that. And we got another talented artist here today, Maynard, and we are going to talk about his rust effects because he is the Rust King. So, Maynard, how's it going, sir?
Not too bad. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me and, giving some tips and tricks to all these wonderful people. So
sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah, let's we'll get the slideshow up here and put us underneath. So tell us a little bit about how you got into customizing these in the first place and why rust in particular.
Well, when I got my first figure, it was Tibius. Mm-hmm. Then I got my first Skeleton Legion builder, and I'm looking at him like, this guy's decomposed so much that he's nothing but bones now. I'm feeling his armor would look kind of crappy. So I jumped on the old Google and looked, for rust paint and found the Citadel, Typhus Corrosion, and Rise of Rust. So I went down to my local paint shop and bought some and said, let's see if I can make this look, what I think would look pretty cool. And got a lot from somebody in the cabal of Lord of the Rings figures. So my very first custom, I'm sitting there cutting up parts off another line, trying to fit them on here and rust up everything. And then I'm like, man, this looks pretty cool. Never mind the fact I spent 2 days at work doing nothing but checking out what real rusted armor would look like.
Right.
And just something I thought would look cool. I wasn't in the line long enough to know that they'd already, done some rusty stuff on other figures. Mm-hmm. So I just took off with it and people seemed to think it looked pretty cool. So, and it was something I enjoyed. And, it was basically my real first attempt at really doing any kind of actual painting. At that point, I'd done minor, painting on some Marvel Legends, making Reavers, but just, I don't know, people liked it. And someone called me the Rust King in the Cabal as kind of like a joke, and it stuck. So it became like my little niche, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So tell us a little about your technique. I know you said Typhus Corrosion and Rise of Rust, but like on a figure like this, do you do any sort of priming or anything first? Or like what are the first steps when you go to work on something like what we're looking at here?
Well, this shield is like my pride and joy. That's like my Mona Lisa, man. I'm just so proud of that one. I had bought a kit from Vallejo of rust and streaking and stuff. I had just gotten it. I was, a year and a half or so into doing the rust by the time I did this. Mm-hmm. And so the outside edge of it is, my normal thing with the Citadel paints.
Right.
And I took and sanded the whole thing lightly. So that's where I got all the streaks in it, all the lines. Mm-hmm. Just, to give it a little damage look. And then the thicker spots at the very top of the shield and the very bottom, or the Citadel, that everything else was from that Vallejo set I bought, and just wanted to look like, where it was painted, the paint's, protected the metal more. It's not as rusted. Mm-hmm. Try to make it look cool for that awesome head you gave me. Just wanted to try something new and fell in love with it. I just, if you zoom in, see the really thick spots at the very top point of the shield and the very bottom. It
Right.
just looks, like where things have settled there, water sat there, and
A little
just,
extra residue and whatnot.
yeah, just made it a cool effect.
Yeah. So this is one I wanted to talk about because in addition to, the rust look, you do a lot with like damaging stuff. As far as like just adding extra battle damage, you got an arrow through this. You've also got like a spot where there's a chunk taken out of this shield. So tell us a little bit about like what goes into that. Like how do you decide where to put damage and how do you actually apply it? What's going on here?
Well, the big hole, I wanted it to look like it was from where there had been damage and what wood started rotting away because it's so old. That's why it's so gray.
Mm-hmm.
And long time ago, I started with one of them wooden shields. I just did the hole and cut off an arrow and stuck it in there, and I never liked the look. Just, I don't know, I wanted a little more realistic look.
Right.
So I took my X-Acto knife and slowly carved a hole out to where the head would just fit through it. Tiny bit of super glue and had a really cool look. That's why I had to, send you the picture of the back because the arrowhead sticking through it, just such a cool look to me, something different. Now I couldn't do it with the figure itself, but and I hate painting those arrows so bad, dude, that they suck. There's flop around so much, just because they're thin plastic.
Yeah,
and that's why the one in his chest, that's some elf shot him after he was already undead. That's why it's all shiny and new, just because I'm lazy.
Yeah, I remember at one point I had painted an arrow and I tried to use my heat gun to dry it, and the thing just like bent in half, just like melted in my hand.
Yes.
They don't hold up real well to heat either. So cool. So let me go to this next one. So these are all just kind of all rusted out. So tell us a little bit about your technique as you're using this, typhus corrosion and the riser rust and anything else that you're using. So are any of these, did you prime any of them or did you do anything else or tell us about how you went about it?
Guy in the middle there, that's my very first one.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no priming. I washed them in some soap and water. But that guy, everything underneath him was just stock paint. I hadn't even started doing battle damage yet. And, that helmet, of course, Lord of the Rings, his loin piece, Lord of the Rings. And that wouldn't have worked at all if it wasn't for Chris Ferrone and his D plates. And that guy, all I did was first got brand new brushes. I'm just starting painting, right?
Right.
My first thing, if you use typhus corrosion, do not use a good brush. Get a piece of crap brush because it's going to destroy it. It's going to turn it into a puffball from the medium inside the paint. But that one, I just slopped some of that typhus corrosion on it and then started dry brushing the riser rust on it to get a cool look. That's why you pick such great ones of the evolution of me learning what I'm doing. Because at first I just kind of slapped stuff on there and slapped some dry brushing of the rust on it and was like, yeah, this looks really cool. One on the right, actually I traded that with a good friend, Scott Wiles. That was early on when I was starting to try to do damage to stuff. And I'd gotten way better at putting the typhus corrosion on. I found, for me personally, it works better if you do it in layers.
Okay.
Especially if I'm going for full coverage where I want that just completely ruined look like he has.
Right.
And then, like anything when you dry brush, thin little light strokes, hardly get any orange on there and slowly build up because it will glob up and give you like shiny spots if you use too much.
Yeah. So like on that typhus corrosion, are you just letting that dry for a certain period of time before you go to the riser rust? Or are you using like a
you gotta let it dry. Normally I wait a day or so.
Okay.
Because it gets pretty thick, and with that medium in it, it kind of takes a while to dry, especially because you're putting it on pretty thick by the time it's on. And I've gotten to the point now that I'll have like 2 or 3 because I get in the mood for customizing. I don't want to, okay, now I gotta wait, a
Right.
day or at least, 5-6 hours so it cures at least. And I've tried heating it, and it kind of just doesn't work well for me. I mean, someone might have a system that works better, but it gets kind of streaky looking, for lack of a better way to describe it. I don't
Yeah, I
know if
think
it's one of
some
them.
paints seem to work really well with heating up, and then others, especially if they've got like some sort of technical aspect, like the typhus corrosion does. Seems like when you heat it, it kind of, I don't know, it makes it like gel together. It looks odd. So I kind of was, that's what I was wondering, if you're just like waiting for it, but if it sounds like if you got other things in the process at the same time, you're able to keep moving even though the one's drying.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice. And then what about like how you're applying it? Like, are there certain areas that you apply more of this than others as far as the typhus corrosion? And then also with the riser rust, are there certain areas that you dry brush more and certain areas you dry brush less? How does that work?
Now, with the typhus corrosion, I kind of the same all over it. In parts that are going to be covered, I do it a little thinner because it will get a little rub because it builds up a little bit of thickness because of the medium in it.
Mm-hmm.
But now the rise of rust, crevices, I try to get more in there, where it's going to collect
Gotcha.
moisture.
Yep.
And, just what you think, we've all seen enough rust. We're not, 12, we're grown
Mm-hmm.
men. Just kind of try to make it look like some rusty metal you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get more in the creases, and from looking at the armor before I started, it just does some random crap. So just what looks cool to you. I mean,
Right.
90% of what I do is yeah, that looks good. It just
Well, let me pull up just so folks can see kind of what we're talking about. So this is the typhus corrosion. So it is a technical paint from Citadel. Technical paints typically have some sort of texture to them, some sort of grit, stuff like that. This one obviously is drying and kind of looking like dirt or grime or just something that's kind of worn out. And then the other one that we've talked about here is this riser rust. So, and this one is depending on, I've had some issues with this where it looks really orange, and so you have to be like very careful not to have too much on your brush. Like any tips or techniques that you have on this to make sure that you don't just slap it on to where it just looks like it's an orange piece of armor instead of rust?
yeah, when you're going across I always use a white paper towel, especially with that.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing dry brush, when you don't really see any paint coming off on the paper towel anymore,
Yeah.
then you go with that. And if you screw up with this, a brown wash over the spot you screwed up blends in perfectly. It'll dye down that bright orange enough that it looks good. Because I've screwed up 100 times with it. I mean,
Yeah.
especially the longer I do it, the less I pay attention because I know what I'm doing. Like anybody else, I know what I'm doing. Oh no, I don't. I'll
So
screw up. So little brown wash on it, tone it
when you
down
say brown
perfectly.
wash, are you using like the Agrex Earthshade? Is that what you're using? From
I'm
Citadel?
using that Citadel. What the hell is the name? It's got
Nuln
a weird
oil?
name. I can't think of it right now.
It's not Nuln oil or Agrex Earthshade?
No.
Okay.
And
I know they've got a
blanking on the name.
contrast one that's kind of grimy too. That's like Garagak sewer or something. That one's kind of nice too. But okay, so just kind of like a darker wash, brown it up a little bit, and then you try again.
No, I just use that and it tones down the orange enough that it looks fine.
Oh, okay.
I just take
so
a little bit on a
you're
brush and
good.
kind of dab it on the really bright spot,
Mm-hmm.
and comes out looking great. Matter of fact, on the one on the left there,
Yeah.
there was several spots where I wasn't paying attention and got too much on him, especially on the pauldrons. And then I just did a complete wash over both pauldrons to tone them down. I got a little carried away.
Gotcha. So then we got these two here. Tell us a little bit about these. Now the one on the right looks like you kind of picked and shows where you applied the riser rust. Like it's not just all over. It's like in certain spots. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's basically what the very first picture of rusted armor I ever looked at looked like.
Gotcha.
Just random spots of rust. So I'm like, try that on one of these figures. And then, I did it heavier on his lower parts where are, exposed to the ground and more wear and tear.
Right. And then the one on the left?
That one. I worked on that forever. Matter of fact, I was just in a point where I was getting ready to cut down skeleton legs when I saw the reveal of the dwarf they're making. So I'm like, I'm not doing that now. I'll just get his legs in a couple of years. But that's my iron jaw. If you look, because that's a Chronow head.
Right.
And his jaw is actually rusted. So I just ran with their name and decided that he was the first. That's where the iron jaw name came from.
That's awesome.
And of course, I love skeletons. I love dwarfs. So I had to make a rusty dwarf skeleton.
Dwarf skeleton. That's cool. Yeah, I love the look of that one on the left. It is like there's certain spots that are definitely more rusted than others, but it looks natural. It looks like it's haphazardly, like there's no rhyme or reason to where it is. It's not like there's like a set pattern that's that's symmetrical on the left and right. Like it's just kind of different spots. Some spots are a little bit brighter, some spots are a little bit darker, and it looks like real rust on that one. I really like that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that one I took a lot of time with. Because a lot of what I was working on when I was doing him was stuff I was doing to sell. And that guy was just 100% for me. So when I had a little extra time, I'd work on him. And said he was the first time I did any kind of sculpting. I sculpted his forehead to look more like a human dwarf. And just, something different. I just wanted to try some stuff because I bought some sculpting medium to fill in holes on the upper arms, take off the armor. So I just had smooth arms. And
do you know
different stuff?
Do you know what kind of sculpting that like clay or whatever it was?
I use milliput.
Milliput. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people use that or epoxy sculpt or green stuff or whatever. There's a lot of different ones, but yeah, it looks nice. See, when I was first looking at that, I was like, to me, I thought it was like a 3D printed head, and then you said Chronon, and then I was like, and then that makes sense now. You added a little bit to his forehead because that looks cool. Created a nice little look to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. He's one I'm really proud of. I had a lot of fun doing that one, and it took my time.
Awesome. And I saved this one for last because this is my absolute favorite. Like, to me, like this does not even look like a toy. Like this looks like a rusted out sword and shield. I love the damage at the bottom of that shield where you kind of got that hole cut out, and then even in the sword, like you can see little notches along the sword where there's some damage there, and this just looks fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit about this one?
That was early on, and that was my actual first attempt at doing any kind of damage to anything. And I got some files, and I drilled a hole in the bottom of that shield, and then everything out of there is all done with a file. That took a lot of time. And I've got a cool little triangle file that I do the damage on the blades with.
Yeah.
And see, now my issue with that is looking at the rust on it now. Now that I've gotten a lot better at it, I think the rust on it looks like crap.
Yeah.
But I love the damage on it.
I love the damage and the rust. I know it's a little heavy as far as the rust elements go compared to what some of your newer stuff is. But to me, this looks like it has just been abandoned for, a couple hundred years. And like you come across it, like it is like just rusted to high heck. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little too orange for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
I might have to go over that again and put a little wash on it or something. I ended up going to a rusty skeleton orc I did.
Oh, nice.
When I first got talking with Jonathan Hughes. We did a trade, and he sent me some torsos and this orc skull. And I'm like, oh man, that sword and shield would be perfect for this orc. So
Now, as far as like the damage on the sword and stuff, you said that you're using like a triangular shaped file. I'm not. I've seen people like cut it out with an X-Acto knife and stuff, but I've not heard people using a file before. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what size is it, and how do you go about like deciding where to put damage and stuff?
oh, I'm weird. Okay, we're gonna find out how weird it is. I held that sword in one hand.
Uh-huh.
I had another sword in my other hand, and we're hitting them together, not like swing, but touching them
Right.
together to see, where I thought they would have hit. Then whatever angle I hit the other sword into it, I went at that with these files are tiny.
Yeah.
I took that spot at that angle and started filing in. And the best part with those files is you can get like a tiny little nick out of it, or you can go in. I take the tips off with a file.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole tip of the sword will just be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got spots on the shield I hit with a file. If you look in the little recesses on the sides,
Right.
you'll see metal damage. Same thing.
Right.
I go at it with a file. And I don't take off any of the burrs or anything. I paint over them. So you've got those little gnarly burrs that are all painted up like rust. It just adds to, the rust effect.
That's awesome. Is that just something that you get from the hardware store? Just a little set of files like that? Or
yeah, those would work great. I got these from my job. There's some expensive set we had for, I don't even remember.
Gotcha.
Been sitting around for 20 years and didn't have any use for them. So I took them home because they were all so small and weird shape. I have like a leaf shaped one. I've got one that's just got a very slight curve to it, which is great for like rolling over the edge of a sword because it'll leave a lip on the back side of it, like the metal is rolled, and it just makes a cool look. I mean, nothing you can really see in pictures that well unless you like zoomed way in. But
is it just stuff you practice with? Like you're like, hey, I'll just take this file and see, on this sword what this does, and you just kind of mess around until you find something you like.
Yeah, that's what I did. Just experimenting with them on everything you've got in that picture was just something I was all experiment to see what I could do early on with those new tools. And
yeah, I like that a lot. We were talking this weekend. We were talking to some folks and just said, that's like the crux of customizing and just, throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. You just try some new things and some stuff's going to work and some stuff's not going to work. And, but you learn. So that's cool.
I call it the swag method. Scientific wild ass guess.
That works. Well, that's really about it. These are not long segments. So I appreciate you coming on and talking to us about that. And folks out there watching, I'd love to see what you create with this. If you pick up these tips from Maynard and you go out there and you work on your first custom, or maybe you work on your millionth custom, but it's the first one you apply rust to, tag us in it, message Maynard, message myself, and let us know what you come up with, because it'd be cool to see that this is being helpful to somebody and somebody's able to use this towards something. So like he was saying, try some different things, test out with some damage. I'm a very clean aesthetic guy. Like when I do stuff, a lot of my knights and things like that, they look like they've never seen a battle before. Maynard is completely opposite. So, that's something that's kind of a little bit foreign territory to me. I've done a few of those like that, but it's not my comfort zone. But, sometimes you just got to get out of your comfort zone and try some new stuff. So any other thoughts on that, Maynard?
Oh, if anybody does do anything, I would love you to tag me in it or send me a message. If you've got any questions, I'm more than willing to give you any tips I can think of. And because This community's been great to me, and any little tidbits I can give back to anybody trying to do some rust, I'm more than willing.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back room and close out the show, and then I'll be right back with you.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, that's another how'd they do it in the books. Hopefully you picked up some new tricks and tips there. And like we said, we'd love to see what you create. So get out there, try some new stuff, have some fun, And until next time, keep creating, folks.